interesting. I can tell you, it's kind of I'd be less than honest to tell you I wasn't disappointed in the outcome. That recall was, needless to say, orchestrated by the far left. I take that as a badge of honor. MoveOn.org contributed to my opponent. My opponent, a Republican, was endorsed by the Democrats as the Democrat nominee. They didn't run their own candidate.
We were going to go down and vote for you.
Acorn would have appreciated that. So I can tell you it was very disappointing. But I understood. I still got over 70% of the Republican vote in the primary, and I'm proud to say the Republican would vote for me. In spite of the Arizona Republic, I've never seen such manufactured garbage in my life. I told my wife, if I believed half of what I read, I wouldn't vote for me. I mean, it's unbelievable. My family says, gee, we never knew that, Russell. We were raised with you. I said, well, Arizona Republic printed it. It must be true. So it's embarrassing. You know, when they do character assassination, I don't mind a debate. I'm like the sheriff, my good friend, Sheriff Paul. And I'm proud to call Sheriff Paul my good friend. You know, I'm so grateful for good patriots. You know, I work hard. Freedom is my number one goal. That's, and it's like running for office. I never intended to run. Never intended to run. And then there comes a time. I love law enforcement. I've been a judge in law enforcement most of my career, 23, 24 years. Former chief deputy of Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. I teach Sheriff Joe all the time. I was his chief deputy. He was a good student. He's learned well. You know, I love law enforcement. And I love the men and women that put on their uniforms just like our military, our hometown heroes, as well as our military heroes and our Border Patrol heroes. And I'm grateful for that. But there comes a time where I'm like, Sheriff Paul, I am so tired of people running for office. They're going to fix stuff and never get it fixed. There's a time to say enough is enough. You know, for years we've talked about border security. It's not secure. We have the technology, the resources, the ability. What we have is the lack of political courage or a corrupt government who has no concern for the destruction of this republic, the destruction and those taking jobs from Americans, the crime that comes with it, the cost to the taxpayer associated with it. I mean, who are they really standing for? And I'll tell you, if you're for illegal immigration, you've got to be against U.S. citizens because they're a conflict in the making. So you can't stand for both. And I want to echo. Sheriff Paul brought up a couple of points, and I don't want to spend all night on this. He did such a good job. There's so much more. We could spend so much time on this issue. You know, during the debate of SB 1070, by the way, 2 more lawsuits were filed today by ACLU in Moldoff, which is probably farther left than the ACLU, against SB 1070. So again, it keeps coming. It's like I've been in the battle for about 25 years, folks, as you know. Maybe, probably a lot more than that in reality. But I wrote Proposition 200, by the way, which stopped voting fraud and welfare fraud. It was intended to do that. You know, again, like I tell people, good grief, you know, you ought to be a citizen to vote. I thought our founding fathers decided that a long time ago. So we're the first state in the nation, and the only one until Georgia did it, and they did it about 5 years after the fact. Only state in the nation required proof of citizenship to register to vote. Gee, kind of a novel idea. And so then, you know, and by the way, thousands were unable to register to vote. Everybody says, well, Russell, you're disenfranchised. So I said, if they're not eligible to vote, I've disenfranchised over. I protected the legitimate voters called the citizens of the United States and not have their vote destructed, removed, or minimized by those who have no right to vote. And you know, there's been 17 states being investigated by Acorn voter fraud, over 100,000 registrations in Miami County alone in Florida that were suspected fraudulent turned in by Acorn. It's a real problem. So it was an important issue. And then a little ID when you go to the polls. I know that's a tough standard. I have to show 2 forms of ID to get a blockbuster movie. I thought voting ought to be on the same part. So anyway, and then voted for. We're still fighting on our welfare front to stop people who are in this country illegally getting benefits that are taxpayer supported. I'm a limited government guy. I believe that most of our entitlement programs ought to be neutered or at least trimmed, if not gone away. You know, I don't believe you have a right to take from those that earn and redistribute that to those that haven't earned, the non-working. We all have a heart. and we love our citizens, and we love those that are in trouble, and we ought to be involved in charity. Every one of us ought to be engaged in taking care of our family and our neighbors. But it ought not to be through government, I'm a firm believer. Now, I'm not going to eliminate those programs, I know, but at least eliminate the fraud, the corruption, and the abuse that goes with it. So that is a goal. So anyway, I did that. I've been sued 7 times, so I'm used to ACL in Moldova, and those folks know someone by name. In fact, I was on their list. I was very that I was considered one of the 10 most terrorists in the nation by Moldova. I was disappointed the sheriff wasn't there, but I know they got him in their sights too. You know, because they go after anybody who wants to secure that border and enforce our laws. And this sheriff's right, you will never, ever secure that border until you enforce our laws. Never. You know, when you can come here and get free medical, free education, and somebody's got a job for you, you'll do what you have to do to come. You simply enforce the laws. And let me tell you the impact of what we've done. You know, let me not get ahead of myself here. You know, as I just get to this point, and I'll get there. I also wrote employer sanctions. You know, to go after illegal employers. We're hiring those folks in this country illegally, taking jobs from Americans. Now, the unemployment's dropped a little bit. We still have 14 million Americans, those that are looking for jobs, identified 14 million unemployed. And we think it's okay for somebody to hire illegals and take those jobs away, pay under the table in most cases, have a competitive, illegal, immoral advantage over the honest employer. It's absolutely wrong, and I, for one, will not tolerate it. And I will continue to make sure the laws are honored and supported. And the legal citizen, the legal employer, is represented properly and not undermined. I had a young gal come to me on Sally's Plates, and she's been in business 30 years. She said, Russell, I no longer can compete. I can't compete with the guys down the street. They have a 30% advantage over me because we know who they're hiring. I can't compete. I'm going out of business. I do things right. She says, who's standing up for me? I said, I and some others, not alone. But it's a tough battle. And it continues to be a tough battle. So anyway, wrote employer sanctions. By the way, just won a United States Supreme Court decision 5-3 on that. After being sued 8 times. I've been to court 8 times on that one. The Supreme Court agreed with me. I love Judge Roberts' comments. He not only complimented me on a well-written bill, contrary to those who keep telling me that's poorly written, you know. He said, states not only have a right, they have an obligation to enforce these laws. Everybody wants to talk about this, a federal issue, you're preempted. The states have never been preempted from enforcing these laws. Regulatory powers belong to Congress. Enforcement is not regulatory. States have inherent police powers under the Constitution, and unless they're preempted specifically by Congress in an area, Congress has an enumerated responsibility under the Constitution. That has never happened. Had Congress wanted to preempt the states from enforcing the laws, they could have used what are called their plenary powers. They have never done that. Never. The only thing that presents the enforcement of our laws are weak-kneed politicians who don't have the courage to stand up for Americans. And it's disappointing to me. So anyway, that was a huge one. It's more about states' rights than anything else. States' rights. Arizona has a right to protect its citizens. Arizona has a right to protect jobs for Americans. Arizona has a right to secure its border. Arizona has a right to enforce its laws. And then we passed in 06 a Proposition 100, 102, 103, Prop 300. I wrote those. I've been very vigilant on this issue, folks. Let me tell you, it's not the only thing I do, though. I wrote the bill on Prop 107 in 2010 to eliminate affirmative action in the state of Arizona. I co-sponsored the marriage amendment to protect the sanctity of marriage between a man and a woman. I've written the toughest laws on protection of property, stop the abuse of government on eminent domain. I vote 100% pro-life, and we're #1 state in the nation right now, by the way, in protection of the unborn. I wrote Senate Bill 1108, you know, the Freedom to Carry Act. You almost can't get arrested today if you're a good citizen for carrying a gun in any way you want to carry a gun in Arizona. And I have law enforcement, I mean, they're my friends, you know that. I got 2 boys in law enforcement. Sheriff Paul, good friend, and I'm grateful for these kind of folks, but sometimes they get a little nervous, you know, they kind of get in this mode that, that's awful dangerous, Russell. I said, you know what? When seconds count, police are only minutes away.
Right.
It is your job. And to rob you of that right, you have to defend yourself, your family, your property, is immoral and in violation of our Second Amendment for those that have read it. So anyway. We are the #1 state in the nation in Second Amendment freedom. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that. You almost can't get in trouble, like I say. We have laws against bad guys, prohibited possession, all those. We have laws against bad guys. And like I used to tell the law enforcement come to me, you know, and they say, well, what about these bad guys out there? They're carrying already. What do you think they're called bad guys for? It's because they're bad guys. They're going to do what they do. They don't follow the rules of the law. So I'm going to take your rights away where he doesn't care, and he's going to do what he's going to do. It's just, I mean, got to get our thinking lined up.
Yeah.
Who are we really trying to defend and protect? First of all, our founders intended that never be impugned or impeached or messed with. Your right to bear arms. You know, and first of all, this the Second Amendment that keeps the First Amendment safe. So anyway, I digress a little bit, but I've been in this battle of limited government, freedom, securing our borders, enforcing laws. During the debate of 1070, and again, we're on the way to the Supreme Court. This lawsuit's at a lower court, the new one that's found by ACO New Moldov, so it'll be a new battle. I love their arguments. Illegals have a right to solicit work. This is one piece of 1070. And it's illegal to hire. It's a felony to hire. It's illegal to be here, but you have to have a right to solicit work. Okay, well, some of us haven't read the law, the Constitution, the same. So anyway, we're on one end of the Supreme Court, and they've accepted the debate of 1070. And I'm grateful for that. We will prevail. I'm here to tell you, we will win that battle just like we did on employer sanctions, a 5-3 decision. And it's about states' rights more than anything else.